Okay, so I don't run, but y'all see them, all right? And then they're going. Think about the people that run like, what is it, like 13 mile, 26 mile. I met this guy one time that ran like 30, 40 miles, some kind of special type of stuff, like out in the woods. Got bit by a snake, showing me the pictures of his heel and everything. I'm like, dude, seriously? But, you know, out there running and doing all this sort of stuff, those are readily available sugars. So that when they begin to first expend all of that energy, they've got ready carbs available. Then it'll go to their fatty sources, and they've conditioned so much. That's, you know, muscle and stuff. All right. So this is what we're talking about, the fight or flight. All right, because that is a fight or flight situation. You know, they're actually pumping up that sympathetic nervous system to take that run. All right, so it's providing the fuels. There is a trace of dopamine. Don't know if you've ever heard of this neurotransmitter, but it's one that's heavily studied, associated with other stuff like clinical depression and that sort of thing. It's a precursor to our adrenaline and noradrenaline. But in our studies, it's just too numerous for us to even to begin to get into. If you were going into endocrinology, oh yeah, definitely, they would get into that. So part of our adrenal gland is that medulla. The remaining portion around the outside, the cortex, okay? This one produces corticosteroids. Corticoids. Does that sound familiar in any way? What does it kind of make you think of? Cortisone. Something hurts, might have popped a disc or something. Go to the doctor. Oh, man, it's just hurting. All right, well, come on, let's give you a shot of cortisone. Used to be, that was their answer, okay? And they would be very freely giving those cortisone shots. They now try to control people, you know, keep people down to 2 a year, mainly because of what it does to your immune system and what it does to the bones of your body. Breaks them down.
My mom, she has eczema, so she get it like a lot in the summertime. It's like this stuff. I don't know if it's cortisone or cortisol cream.
Okay.
But like she used to use that like when she used to get like her
asthma. Now, was it a shot or was it just the cream?
It was cream.
Which is fine, because that would only work to like certain levels of the skin, which now I think they're finding with eczema is that they're finding there are some underlying conditions. So I think they're, like, if they begin to treat people, I think for some of the autoimmune problems, they're finding it helps with the eczema too, rather than just having a topical. So I know they've been doing that a lot too. Audrey, do you have a question?
I was just going to say that I use hydrocortisone. I use that over the summer because I was.
And see, those are fine because those are creams. Now, you are kind of limited because I think you can only put it on like so many times a day and use it for only so many days before you have to take a break and start back up. But the shots are definitely dangerous. Okay, like people have knee problems, they might give the shots in the knees, okay, might have hip problems, they take a needle about this long and tell you not to move and go into, yeah, right. Okay, so you got all this sort of stuff that they would use cortisone for. In the case of our cortex for this adrenal gland, we're going to find there are 3 layers that are present. So if the medulla had that fiber from the sympathetic division, this outer area, the cortex portion, there are 3 layers. They give them these fancy names, but all they're telling us is they refer to it as a zone. Okay? So zona glomerulosa, zona fasciculata, zona reticularis. The second term is referring to like the structure. Okay? So, in my zone for the glomerulus or glomerulosa, all right, that's the outermost layer. So if you were looking at the cortex, remember that inner medulla, okay? And so now think of 3 zones, okay? So the outer one, cells are in round clusters because in our field, anytime we hear glomerulus, glomerulosa, you should think of a bubble, okay? So they're in round clusters. These are our minerals, mineralocorticoids, the most important of which is aldosterone. We're going to get back to that when we start the chapter on our kidneys. All right, just don't forget it. In the middle layer, cells have this foamy appearance, fascicles, fasciculata, okay? This one, glucocorticoids, meaning, think of sugars, androgens, think of maturity, puberty, okay? The reticularis, the inner layer, looks like reticular, meaning it looks kind of weavy, okay? Glucocorticoids and androgens. Now, here's what happens. Minerals regulate electrolyte balance. What is an electrolyte?
Ions.
Ions, the pluses and minuses. What in our body are pluses and minuses? Alex?
Sodium.
Sodium, potassium, magnesium, zinc. See where I'm going with this? So, why do I need to regulate those? What's 2 major activities in the body that they're used for? Y'all say it with me. Nerve conduction, muscle contraction. Do we want those to, once again, I'll ask the question, do we want those to go wrong? No, we don't. Okay? So, regulating electrolytes. My glucocorticoids, like I said, glucose fuels. The sex steroids, androgens, okay? Think of the puberty and so forth, all right? So that's what the cortex of this adrenal gland does. It's pretty busy. People that may have problems with their adrenal gland can develop some serious health issues. Serious, life-threatening. Aldosterone, because this one is our most important mineralocorticoid, when it's produced in that outer zone, one of the ways that it's going to act, blood pressure. All right, blood pressure. Let's think about that for a second. What do they say? Now, y'all know what I mean when I say they, right? The people that sat somewhere and told us there's a rule, okay? What do they say is a normal blood pressure? Oh, come on, you don't know that. 120/80, which I think they bumped to 110/70. Okay, that's what they want to see. Is that true for everybody at every age?
No.
No. Different ages are going to have different expectations, different norms. But in the grand scheme, blood pressure drop. Why is that a problem?
Reduce perfusion of organs.
We would have less blood making it to tissues of the body, which could lead to what? And death. Okay? So, what we're going to find now, have y'all ever heard of raw? Okay, here goes. Our renin, angiotensin, aldosterone system. We're going to look at it now. We're going to look at it when we talk about the respiratory system, and we're going to talk about it when we get into the kidneys. This is a system that gets activated in the case of blood pressure dropping. Now, what this means, dropping quickly and very low. Okay? On the grand scheme of things, as long as everything's normal, your blood pressure's doing this number anyway. Okay? Up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. The goal is the body keeping it in a norm. But when blood pressure drops too low, that top number, okay, I've recently learned that the bottom number doesn't seem to be that much of a concern for dropping of blood pressure. It's the top number. And I was like, why? Y'all should know that's my question, okay? Well, I have to do some research about it, all right? And then I found out why, okay? Interesting, but anyway, so if that top number begins to drop too much, all right, it does become quite a bit of a problem. Biggest reason, we're not getting blood to the tissues, and tissues die quickly, very quickly, okay? Now, in response, the body has this system. So, do you guys remember baroreceptors? And where were they located? Gabrielle?
In the aorta?
The branching that comes right off the aorta, leading up into the head and the neck. Okay, do y'all remember that? If they detect a fall in the blood pressure, because that would be their stretch, okay, they activate a sympathetic reflex. Sympathetic division, fight or flight, start things up. Is everybody with me? Okay. Now, angiotensin 2 will get produced. Their numbers kind of came, their labels kind of came about based on their findings when they were discovered and so forth. Okay? Well, if that hormone gets produced, it acts on the adrenal cortex. And when it does, it tells it, secrete aldosterone. Well, aldosterone acts on the kidneys, which is why this system is going to come back to us when we talk about the